If you were to go back 2,400 years ago, you would have come across many pharaohs in Egypt, but there's one that stands out in the pack among all the pharaohs. His name is Akhenaten. When you look into his history and his DNA, some people speculate that he might not even be from this earth.
Akhenaten is a unique individual, so unique that he didn't want to be depicted as what he wasn't. He didn't want to be depicted in his prime, muscular, because he wasn't. He may have been in his prime, but he wasn't muscular. He looked like he was weak, spindly arms and legs, a pot belly, an elongated head, almond-shaped eyes. There was a lot of things different about Akhenaten, and he may have come, from another planet.
A research team did 2 DNA samples from Akhenaten. Actually, one was taken from his brain tissue, and they had a conclusive result. Then they did a second test and extracted tissue from one of the bones. Then they came up with a conclusive report that Akhenaten's skull was twice as thick as an average human skull.
Let's just say it and get it over with, because it might be true. There may be some DNA spliced into us from him. I don't know. But he was unique, very unique. There were the DNA that they took from his bone. It had some DNA helix healing qualities to it. It's just denser in the skull, different than any other mummy they found. That his skull was twice as thick, which is unbelievable. That means it's stronger. That means somehow, some way, they think that it was the sun, why a lot of Egyptians shaved their heads to get their skulls stronger, while Persians wrapped their heads up, and covered their heads from the sun. So they think it's possible that the sun may make your skull stronger.
And this result came out that Akhenaten's brain may hold a larger capacity of intelligence. Could this bloodline be passed on to the pharaohs, creating this higher being of intelligence, a hybrid, and the possibility of them using their high intelligence, creating these massive megastructures found in Egypt? There was a study done in 2008. Professor Steve Fleischman, he wanted to see if the DNA had a strange anomaly to it, and they presumed they had the DNA of Akhenaten. So when they proceeded with the study, they found out that there was some kind of possible manipulation done to the DNA. When you're talking 2,400 years ago, how could they have even done genetic modification? It's impossible unless there was something that had intervention, like an alien race.
The Persians, when they got hit over the head, their skull just cracked wide open. If you hit one of the Egyptian soldiers in the head, you would just piss them off. You may stumble, make them stumble and get dazed, but that'll just make them madder. And that's unique, to see that the skulls can be easily crushed compared, from Persians to Egyptians. It's a very unique individual. He's a very unique person. There's a lot of things about him that don't make sense, that could be alien-ish. And it makes you wonder, did he come down to this planet? Was he put here? Did he want to be put here and rule? I'd like to know who his parents were. I wonder if Blake and Brent have that information. I don't know. But I don't know.
The strange appearance of Akhenaten definitely doesn't look like any of the other pharaohs that preceded him. Why did he look like this? Did the artwork of the time misrepresent the pharaohs after him? Or did Akhenaten have his own unique appearance due to the unique DNA that he had in his blood? Where did this bloodline come from?
This is ancient alien theories, and the best we can do is go by what we're told. And what we're told is that he had a thicker skull, twice as strong, twice as long, twice as smart probably, He was very unique, depicted himself in his natural form, unlike any pharaoh of the time. It's an amazing story, and I hope it does mean that we are part alien, because I tell you what, I don't think humans are indigenous to this planet. We get suntan too easily, we need to wear clothing. Where did our fur go if we came from chimps or apes? Could have been Akhenaten. Could have been his DNA that changed everything. Maybe.
I believe there's a race of elongated skulls that were around the world, from Peru to Egypt and China. These weren't just simple bindings of a head. I think these were a genetic hybrid that created these intelligent beings. Could there be a genocide of these elongated skull people? At one point, there was a massive grave found of these Paracas skulls, all with their skulls crushed in as if they were murdered, and they were put into a pit. I do believe that they were eradicated from this planet because of their high intellect and technology and the misunderstanding of the common people at the time. And they revolted, unfortunately, and I think we did miss a big opportunity of heavy science and technology that we're missing today.
So who was this strange pharaoh? Was he genetically modified by an alien race? Was there a cover-up by his own son to destroy any evidence of his existence, whether it be manipulation by an alien race, or was he in his own right an alien species?
This is my favorite topic. I love ancient alien theories and possible facts, because it has been said by ancient alien theorists, some archaeologists, and some Egyptologists who probably are hiding somewhere after they told the truth, because, you know, can't let the truth out to the public. And this may be one of those times. Akhenaten is a unique individual, so unique that he didn't want to be depicted as what he wasn't.
Now we present to you Brian Forrester and his incredible breakdown of the DNA results of the Paracas skulls. We want to thank also L.A. Marzulli along with Richard Shaw for the incredible investigations and visuals you'll be seeing in this presentation.
Hi, this is Brian Forrester coming to you from Paracas in Peru. And what I'm going to be discussing today is a brief overview of the DNA results from the Paracas elongated skulls. I can't give you the full results because the entire process cost $100,000. I promised that I would do this. This process began more than 5 years ago. I had no idea that it was going to be so time-consuming and expensive, but it was. But the results that we got are quite earth-shattering. Most people believe, or most academics believe, that all Native American people of North, Central, and South America crossed the Bering Land Bridge something like, or their ancestors did, something like 12,000 years ago. And what these results are going to show you is that, in fact, there was another route. There was an ocean route across the Pacific Ocean, and these ancient people with elongated skulls arrived on the coast of Peru at the largest natural bay in Peru approximately 3,000 years ago, but that has to be finalized. Again, the academics make lots of statements about dates and times and things like that with no actual physical evidence. Very little carbon-14 testing, and zero basically, DNA testing has ever been done on the Paracas until this point. And what it's going to show you is that their origins were not those of the typical Native American person, because most Native American people's ancestors did cross the Bering Land Bridge. But the Paracas people have many anomalies which make them very different from Native Americans. The elongated skull is, of course, the most obvious aspect of this. So why don't I bring one of these people on so that you can see them? This is what we believe is a natural elongated skull of the Paracas people. Here, Look at the incredibly complicated shape and design of this skull. Sorry, I'm still getting used to doing this. But you see the shape. According to Ken, who is a friend of mine and is a radiologist, in order to create the shape by artificial cranial deformation would be impossible, because you would kill the child if you tried to create this shape. Some of the anomalies are the incredibly large eye sockets, the complete lack of any sagittal suture. There's supposed to be a suture line like this one, but there's none. So either that suture closed very early on or was never there. And that means that the pelvis of the mother would have to be different from a normal Homo sapiens sapiens. Also, these bones, these little bones you see at the back, these are not normal for human beings, except the Inca culture. They're in fact called Inca bones, and what that tells us is that part of the ancestry of the famous Inca royalty was probably the Paracas people. The basic timeline again is that the Paracas arrived on the coast of Peru approximately 3,000 years ago, and then mysteriously disappeared about 2,000 years ago. And the mystery is no longer a mystery, because I think I've solved it. What happened was you had a gradual desertification of this area. Water, the rains, the little rain there was, more or less stopped. And so people living slightly north of Paracas had trouble trying to grow crops. And so they moved south and they invaded the Paracas area. These people were called the Topara and later became known as the Nazca. So this ties in with the famous Nazca lines and geoglyphs. The Nazca people created approximately 30 of the great geoglyphs, like the spider, the hummingbird, etc., between 100 AD and 600 AD, and then they had to abandon the area because of desertification. They actually destroyed their own environment. And what they did is they invaded the fertile Paracas area, and they killed off the royal Paracas people who had red hair, were very light-skinned, were relatively very tall, and had skulls like this. This one was DNA tested, but unfortunately, because the DNA is 2,000 plus years old, the results didn't come back with anything interesting to say. There was actually, the DNA was so heavily degraded that there was no result, but this skull will be retested once again, and hopefully we'll get results then. We were only able to get mitochondrial DNA results because getting nuclear DNA is very complicated and very expensive. But this is the overview of what the results of the testing was. 58 samples were sent out of Peru, and they were registered with the Ministry of Culture of Peru. This is a political process we had to go through in order to get this done, because you're not allowed to send anything pre-Columbian, whether it's a piece of pottery or human DNA or anything like that, out of the country without registering it with the government of Peru. So that was done, and the official archaeologist is Ruben Soto, who is an archaeologist of the Ica Museum, which is located about 1 hour south of where I'm presently sitting. So he started this process 3 years ago. 3 years is what it took to get the documentation registered to allow the group to come down from the United States and do the sampling, and then send the samples to 2 labs, actually 3. One lab is called Lakehead University, which is in Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada. The other one is UCLA in California, And the third lab was Santa Cruz in California, another one of the University of California laboratories. Now, those are 3 of the top 10 in the world. There are only 10 laboratories in the world that can do ancient DNA testing. And being 2,000 to 3,000 years old, we're talking ancient DNA. So the best lab we had was and is Lakehead University in Ontario. They did not want to see photographs of the skulls. They wanted no information whatsoever except for the samples so that they could do a blind test. So if they didn't know what they were looking at, they would be very objective, and they were, and wonderful people. Then also the UCLA laboratory was very helpful, and the UC Santa Cruz was not helpful at all, and let me explain why. The 58 samples were sent, divided up into the different laboratories, and we got results from Thunder Bay and also from UCLA. 18 samples were supposedly sent to UC Santa Cruz, and after months and months and months of them having the samples, they wrote back and said, we were not able to get any DNA results, mitochondrial. Now, whether this is true, or maybe they found results that were very uncomfortable for them and they didn't want to send the results. This is quite common. You don't understand that science is supposed to be objective, but in a lot of cases, science is not objective whatsoever. If something doesn't fit a certain paradigm, they will ignore it. And that's what the academics have done all along as regards the Paracas culture. No academic, as far as I know, in the world is studying the Paracas culture. And that's why I took it on. Where did these elongated skulls come from? Why are they so anomalous? We've had multiple doctors, nurses, dentists, and other medical professionals look at the elongated skulls of Paracas, Peru, and all of them say, I don't know what I'm looking at, because they did not study them or what they were looking at in medical school. They're completely anomalous. So here is a rough overview of what the results are. We got some results which stated that the DNA came from Native Americans, but as far as I can tell, that was 4 results out of 18. The other results were mixed, and so that's why it's taken me 2 days to try to figure out what kind of pattern is going on here with these ancient people. And the basic overview is this. There's a predominance of haplogroups U2E and also H, H1, H1A, and H2. Now, if you study the source of these haplogroups, where do you wind up on the planet? In Peru? No. In South America? No. In the Americas? No. The Caspian and Black Sea area, what we call the Caucasus. Again, look at the characteristics. Light skin, red hair, in some cases blonde hair. The source of red hair is not Ireland or Scotland or Scandinavia. It's the area of Iran, Iraq, and the Caucasus Mountains. So this is going to completely unhinge a lot of academics, but that's their problem. I've been at this for 8 years. I've had to hold on until these results came out, and finally we have them. So again, we have a predominance of what's called U2E and H, H1, H2. The source point of that is in the Caucasus Mountains area. So what would the migration pattern be? It wouldn't be people walking eastward all across Asia to get to the Bering Land Bridge, which wouldn't have existed 3,000 years ago, cross over and walk all the way down from Alaska to Peru. Obviously, these people traveled by the ocean. And how did they accomplish that? Well, the actual pattern is pretty obvious. And this is how it worked. If you try to travel west in order to escape, my theory is that what happened was that the Paracas were a subspecies of humanity. They were very peaceful, calm people, and they were under attack by an invading force or culture of some kind. And so in order to not be eradicated from the planet, they had to escape. If they traveled westward into Turkey and places like that, they would encounter very powerful cultures. It would be difficult to get to the Mediterranean and thereby escape into the Atlantic. So they simply, as far as I can tell, went south. They all said that the anomalies of the skulls themselves, and only those that appear natural, which are about 4%. The rest are cranial deformation, but those are the later ones. The earlier ones are the natural elongated skulls. And they said the anomalies that they saw in these skulls indicate that these were not Homo sapiens sapiens. So I said, well, what does that mean? A different subspecies? And they said, yes. If you were to catalog these ancient Paracas people, you will have to call them Homo sapiens sapiens Paracas. So Ruben, the archaeologist in Ica, Peru, has the results. The question is, will he publish them? Because again, anomalies like this, academics tend to try to hide the results, or they try to manipulate the results. But the great thing is he has the results, and he will either publish them or not publish them for other academics. But if he doesn't publish them, it doesn't matter, because I have the results, L.A. Marzulli has the results, and the other team members have the results, and we will all publish this information for all of you. Again, that's more or less all I can say for now. We have an origin point in the Caucasus Mountains. We have migration into the Red Sea, most likely. And this is the book that will be available that has the full data. It will be available at L.A. Marzulli's website, and his website is la@lamarzulli.net. So God bless you all. Thank you all for joining, and I will have other updates for you as time goes on. So with love and respect, this is Brian Forster coming to you from Paracas on the coast of Peru.